Today we're interviewing AJ about living in truth. This was my idea. I thought this would be a good idea because at our last discussion, AJ noticed that I was having some intellectual problems with what he was saying, and I went home and I thought about a few things, and I thought, well, what stands out to me with yourself and why I have to keep coming back for more,
even though you'd rather not sometimes.
Yes, is related to a quote by Emerson, which is in, I actually Googled it to find out what the real quote was. It's always been a favourite of mine for about 20 years. Yeah. When people ask, they've asked me when I was in my atheist days, what's your position because they're ex-church people? What's your position, Geoff, now?
Did the atheist days happen after the church or before the church?
After.
Fair enough.
They probably started about 18 when I was trying to teach a Sunday school class about Noah and God drowning all the people, and myself and this friend who is now a professor of psychology looked at each other. We're both 18 and we just said, what are we doing? What are we teaching these kids?
Yeah.
Anyway, getting back to the quote. What you are speaks so loudly that I cannot hear what you say. Now I looked it up and it's either what you are or what you do. The point is the same.
What you are or what you do speaks more loudly than what you say.
Yeah, so you're familiar with that quote? Have you heard that before?
Yes, and it's obviously something that philosophers have said for many, many centuries, not just Emerson.
Yes, so I've got a few other ones here. Someone who I can't remember said, by their fruit they will be recognised.
Yeah, I remember that person as well.
And the other one was, when confronted over breaking certain religious laws yourself, something in the Bible about the law being written on your heart. Can you focus more on the law that is written on your heart rather than what the church is telling me is my appropriate mode of conduct?
Yeah.
Can you just before we go any further,
I'd like to give a bit of background
expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, because you see those quotes came from the book of Isaiah and Jeremiah, and for me when I was a child, one of the things that I noticed quite frequently was the inability of people, even religious people, to practice what they preached. They had a lot of difficulty doing that. Many of them were sincere in terms of what they preached, and they felt some sincerity about what they preached, but when it came to actually practicing what they preached all the time, they had a lot of difficulties doing so. And in my study in the earlier years of my life, actually a lot of it happened before I was 10 while we were still in Egypt. I was sent to the synagogue when I was 5 years of age to the age of 10, pretty much every single day aside from a few days of the week. And during that time I had the chance to read all of the prophets. And the things that really stood out for me even at that age was the concept that was presented in these prophetic books about God wanting to change the heart of mankind. And he, in one of the prophetic books, in the book of Jeremiah, it likens the heart of man like the heart of a stone. And God said, I want to change your heart into a heart of flesh. In other words, something that actually felt something instead of just being this stone-like stoic nature that most people, even nowadays, seem to still have. And if you look at these prophetic books, one of the books, again, the book of Jeremiah, talks about how God was wanting to write the law on the hearts of people. And in fact, this was all a part of what was promised as the new covenant, if you like, the new covenant between God and man. And the new covenant between God and man was basically that God would write, instead of the laws being written in a law book, God would write somehow the laws of, the universe, if you like, and God's laws of love would be written on the heart of the person who had the relationship with God. And this impressed me greatly. In fact, as I developed further, it became the main point of what I felt the Messiah would do. The Messiah would learn how to have this relationship with God strong enough to have the laws of God written on his heart. And so in my teenage years in the first century, I started looking for a Messiah who had the laws of God written on his heart. And of course, every Messiah that claimed himself to be one in the first century that I investigated didn't have any of the laws of love written on their heart, and in fact quite often had quite a lot of other laws which were all to do with errors and obviously violence and other problems that they faced personally written on their heart. And there was not any love coming out of them generally. There might have been strength and conviction, but not love. And so by the time I was about 18, I started having to contemplate that maybe I wouldn't meet the Messiah. You know, I went through this period of time in my first century life where I felt maybe nobody understands this. And then I went through this process, a series of events occurred through 18 to 21 years of age that caused me to realise that I was the Messiah. And that was a very difficult time for me to come to terms with psychologically and emotionally. But eventually I came to terms with that because I realised that I was the only person who understood that what God was aiming for was the laws to be written on your heart, the law to be written on your soul, not some law book that you follow.